What's up everyone, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick and I have an album review for you. This is a bit of like a bonus review because I initially didn't want to review this because I'm like kind of a fair weather fan when it comes down to this band. But when I heard it, I figured this was definitely worth discussing. So today I'm going to go over the newest album from Deafheaven, Infinite Granite. This comes out on the 20th as well of August on Sargent House Records / Daymare Recordings. So I guess this is kind of a shared release in terms of both of those labels. This band formed in 2010 in San Francisco. This is their 4th album, and this is a big stylistic shift. Now, I do own Sunbather and I do own New Bermuda, and I thought both those albums were pretty good. I know there was a lot of hype around the band and I wanted to check them out for myself, and I think they're good. I don't know if they necessarily matched up to the hype, but I thought they were well done. Though I have to say I did not get the follow-up to New Bermuda, Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, just because after seeing them live, they're good, but I didn't like the blend of shoegaze and black metal, especially the fact that it just seemed to drone on forever. Every song was super long. Now, to be fair, I heard Ordinary Corrupt Human Love was actually really good and definitely a stylistic shift in itself. But again, I didn't get it. So I kind of went into this one blind. And that might have been the way to do it because this is so vastly different from anything else I have heard from this band that I honestly had to double check to make sure I was listening to Deafheaven. This is not really a metal album, to be completely honest. And I'm not saying that just, because there are people out there like, oh, they're not metal, it's more shoegaze. It's like, no, they're a metal band. Or at least they were. There's still metal elements on here, but most of this is kind of post-punk, kind of 80s post-punk. Joy Division, The Cure, maybe at its heaviest moments, a little bit of Killing Joke. But of course, with all the shoegaze a la like My Bloody Valentine you could possibly handle on here. This takes a hard turn towards that style. In fact, the metal elements are maybe only 30% of this. Shellstar opens up with some droning ambience, which, believe me, get used to that. There is ambience throughout every single moment of this. And then clean guitars. And initially I thought I was going to hear clean guitars, for just a little bit before they got into the heavy, because these guys are known for long sections of droning tremolo riffs, layered dissonant atmosphere. And then it never came. In fact, it stayed soft and dreamy, and that clean tone is throughout the entire album pretty much. There's only a few moments again that really kind of get their style of heavy. And speaking of clean anything, the vocals on here are predominantly clean. They are all very much in that very kind of shoegazy delivery. It's very breathy, very ethereal, loaded with reverb, and it kind of just, adds another layer on top of more layers of dreamy, spacey music in general, because again, that is kind of the mode of this album. It does delve into some other stuff I thought was kind of interesting. Great Mass of Color actually kind of has like a alternative rock feel, like, 90s alternative rock, though like a little bit more artsy, but still kind of poppy. Kind of reminded me a bit of a band like Hum. And In Blur is quite a fun, like kind of dreamy, soft jam. It actually has a really powerful chorus on here. Powerful maybe not be the right word, just because the vocals never really quite soar on here. They kind of stay at a certain level in the mix, like almost always just kind of fluttering. But they do have a really good hook on it, and the melodies for the most part on here are strong. And if anything, I have to compliment them on the production on this. The production on this is really good. It's intensely layered. There's almost always some sort of droning buzz in the background, whether it's synths or a tremolo guitar or whispers or just a looped noise of kind of like the background hum of space. That would actually be pretty damn close to what it is. Nothing runs together. Everything is very crystal clear and well separated. A job well done there, especially considering all the stuff that's going into it. In terms of stuff that was recognizable as Deafheaven in terms of like their earlier sound, there's not really much of it. The end of the last track, Mombasa, probably is the most Deafheaven moment on there. In fact, that's the only moment on there that has blast beats, The guitars definitely take on a more heavy tone. There are actually screams on there, which screams kind of pop up here and there. There's a little bit on Great Massive Color, Villain, and the Gnashing, but it's generally towards the end, and that was kind of one of my things on here. The sound of the album kind of plateaus for the most part. It kind of stays in this one stagnant sort of spacey vibe, which I get, it is shoegaze, that is kind of part of the sound. But when it came down to sort of dynamics in terms of like lifting the song up, making it heavier, making it more intense, or just like a different mode, it almost always happens at the end of the song. And generally that's where you hear like those little glimmers of the older sound that they had. The Gnashing and Mombasa are probably the best examples of this. And I have to say with a title like The Gnashing, yeah, that's, you know, kind of a heavy, sort of aggressive sounding title. It's more like a nibbling. It's not really biting down that hard up until maybe the last minute or so. And I have to say, at least thankfully, these songs are at least shorter than they were on New Bermuda, where most of the songs in there were over 10 minutes. Most of these are in the 5 to 6 minute range, with the last track being 8 minutes or so. If they were any longer, it would really be more of a chore to listen to because, again, you're kind of stuck in this sort of same hypnotic gear, which it's kind of cool for a while. It's nice. It's very airy. Like in terms of like heft on this album, there really isn't much in terms of like, of course, heavy guitars, but in terms of like weight, in terms of like, you know, big, heavy, oppressive weight, there's almost none of it. Everything's very, you know, airy and light and spacey. But staying in that hypnotic realm so long, it almost kind of lulls the listener to sleep. The clean tones are great and some of the melodies are really cool, but a lot of these melodies sort of run together, and what really sucks is I think he could take some of these like, you know, dissonant, clean melodies and tones and such, and they would be almost interchangeable on these songs. The drum work is at least kind of varied on there, and he does throw in a lot of wild different beats, but when you couple it with the sameness of the vocal delivery and the guitars, it really gets stagnant quick. Honestly, one of my favorite songs on here was the instrumental Neptune Raining Diamonds, and that is true. Neptune does rain diamonds. It's pretty weird. But anyway, the whole song is essentially droning ambient synths, and it has this really cool cinematic vibe to it. It really kind of reminds me of like sci-fi movies like Blade Runner. That is something that was spacey and dreamy, and it actually sounded different than the rest. I would have liked to have heard more synths on here. They are on here, but most of the time when it comes down to like the big melodies, they're carried by the guitars and the very wispy vocals. And again, since there's not much variety in terms of the different things they're doing with those aspects, you get a lot of the same mode. Now, I think it's really good that they pushed themselves creatively. They wanted to try something different. They wanted to sort of break out of this black gaze, blackened shoegaze, whatever you want to call it, sort of subset, and strike out and do something kind of different. Maybe that kind of different ended up being one of the root sounds of it and just sticking to it because this is primarily a shoegaze album. But I respect, you know, the fact that they wanted to change their sound a bit, but I think they pushed too far. This is very far removed from what they built their fan base on, with so few moments on here that is really recognizable as the band, because honestly, if someone had played this for me and I didn't actively search it out and find it, I would not have known it was Deafheaven at all. And while I love stuff like Joy Division and The Cure and Killing Joke, those bands, I think, did it better, honestly. I don't necessarily think this is bad, though. I just think it's so vastly different than what I was expecting and possibly other fans were expecting. But again, I went in this blind. I know they had singles. I just didn't listen to them. I think this is probably going to be a divisive one. I might be wrong. People may really embrace this one. But I think there's definitely a possibility that this is going to drive a bit of a wedge in the fans. But overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I do like a lot of the melodies in here. I do like the feel on it. It's really kind of like a cool, chill listen, but it stagnates. And that's kind of the problem. Like there's a lot of good on here, but it's kind of the same kind of good. Those flutters of their older sound where they actually got heavier, actually brightened it up a little bit. Actually, it kind of woke me up a little bit because some of this really is a little too hypnotic, as in you're getting lulled to sleep. But there are some really good songs in here. Namely, I think In Blur is really good, and Mombasa is a pretty solid song, though I feel like I was waiting too long for a payoff there, and I did finally get it, but I still got it. Pretty much, if you're a fan of this band, I'd definitely say check this out. It is very different, but who knows, you might really dig it. This is kind of like a buyer beware. I definitely jam it first just to make sure you know what you're in for, because again, it is so vastly different. But still, I recommend at least checking it out. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you would like to help us out there will be a link below in the description. We're working on some ideas for new material for Patreon. We're still kind of in the woodshed about it, but we're going to get some stuff up there soon. We also have shirts available. We are still pretty much down to extra large, large, and double X, and maybe small. If you would like one, hit us up on thrallsofmetal@gmail.com and just send us a message with shirts in the title, and we will get your information and hopefully get you a shirt. We also have a giveaway going on. Once we hit 7,500 subs, we're going to give away this stack of 8 CDs, including the new Cannibal Corpse with the uncensored artwork. If you want to get in on that, there will be a link below to that giveaway video. All you have to do is comment on it and you are in. Again, and I do this not because I feel like I have to, because I want to thank you all so much for helping us get this far. It has been a wild ride so far, and we are just getting started because there's so much we want to cover, and yeah, it's been a blast so far, so why not keep going, right? So with that, I thank you all for watching, and we will catch you later.